This is way better than we thought as the San Jose Sharks continue to bolster their defense heading into this season. In this video, we're going to break down everything about these signings, including the real reason why they went out and got both of these defensemen. So you're not going to want to miss this episode of Sharks Digest. Before we dive into everything here, still gotta say 66% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date on the latest news around the San Jose Sharks, we're gonna be here every day keeping you up to date on what's happening around the San Jose Sharks. So make sure down below and hit that subscribe button because we still got a very busy offseason ahead heading into this season. But we got some very exciting news over this week where obviously free agency opened earlier this week. There was a lot of great signings, some trades that happened, and then we also got two more additions of defense that a lot of you guys were excited about, because I know heading into this offseason, a lot of you guys are saying in the comment section, we really need defense bad. Like, we need defense horribly bad. And Mike Grier and the San Jose Sharks knew that, and they went out and made some big acquisitions, with the first one being Dmitry Orlov, coming in from Elliot Friedman on Twitter at 2 years, $6.5 million AAV for the former Carolina Hurricane and Washington Capitals defenseman. Great puck-moving, two-way defenseman here. Really good at getting into those dirty areas and being great in his own end, but then also is a great passer and is a great guy to lead some zone exits at times. Also has a great shot as well. Looking at his stats from last season, he had 28 points, 6 goals as a defenseman is really good in today's NHL. There's a one goal he had last year where he really pinched in, tucked to top corner. This guy has a nasty shot that I don't think is showcased enough, and I really think he's going to be a difference maker here in San Jose. But the big numbers here obviously being his physicality. He's not afraid to lay somebody out. You know, we've seen some big hits from Orlov in the past. 101 hits last season. And like I said, he's a guy who's not afraid to get into those dirty areas with the 60 block shots, and being a plus minus of plus 16 is great as a defenseman. Obviously, those are some big numbers for Dmitry Orlov. And I love this signing as soon as I seen it. I know a lot of people are saying maybe that's too much for Dmitry Orlov, but they needed to offer someone this kind of contract so that they could breach the cap floor. And with this addition and the one we're going to talk about in just a little bit, they have reached the cap floor, so they can just stop spending now if they wanted to. But I do suspect we will see at least a couple of more signings in the near future here for the San Jose Sharks. Maybe it's just some, key, role player type signings, some extensions and stuff like this. I don't think we will see a big splash from Mike Grier, but the money is there, so who knows? Something could happen. A big trade could happen to eat up a bunch of cap for this season. But back to Orlov, I love this signing. I think it was one of the better ones that they did make this free agency. I mean, looking at his JFresh chart here, obviously they say he's a 76 projected WAR going into this season, with his EV defense being 80% and his EV offense being 67%. I mean, that's fantastic number this year. Look at the goals, 71 percentile among defensemen. He's a goal scorer as a defenseman, which you love to see, and I think now, playing on this Sharks team maybe frees him up a bit more to lean more offensive and lean more into that side of his game. And I do think we will see more than 6 goals out of him this season from the blue line. Obviously, he's great at, he's disciplined. He's not taking a lot of penalties. You see that in his high percentile as well. And you see last season, his EV offense and defense just continually went up, which is great to see out of Dmitry Orlov. And then looking at another chart here, his net rating is plus 2.3, meaning that's what he's looking like every game. He's a plus 2 in his rating, whether it's being impactful offensively. You see here his rating 5-on-5 is 70% as a defenseman, which is a huge number. And you see his defensive rating being a plus 0.9. So there's a lot of players that are in the negative in both columns. So when you get a guy to come in here who is positive in into both columns, that is a big feat. There's no doubt about that. And I do think that this is a great contract for the San Jose Sharks, because in 2 years' time, they can just, part ways with them. Maybe they can extend him long term. I mean, he will be 35 by the end of this contract, so maybe if the Sharks aren't competing at that time, but I do suspect they will, maybe you get him back you would get him back at a lot cheaper at 35 years old. So I like this signing. I definitely think it's one that maybe leads into a trade, maybe not this season, but next season when he's expiring on his deal, depending on where the Sharks are in the standings. But it's a very a friendly deal to this team, because in 2 years' time, when his contract's up, that frees up the almost $7 million to where now you had to worry about extensions for all your young guys that are coming up. So I think this is a very team-friendly deal for the San Jose Sharks here, where in this next 2 years, maybe they won't be competing. I suspect that this team could compete whenever. I think it's just going to come and just bust through the wall whenever this does happen. I think they're on the brink. And I definitely do think that this team can compete, especially now bolstering up their defense as much as they've had. But there was also another defensive addition, as earlier we've seen the St. Louis Blues put Nick Leddy on waivers, and this was the perfect contract for the San Jose Sharks to pick up, claim him off waivers, to eat that cap and get all the way up to the cap floor. He only has 1 year left on his deal at $4 million AAV. I think this is just, one of those business moves where, we needed to fill a $4 million hole. All right, this guy's on waivers. This is perfect. Let's just pick him up and he can be our 7th D-man. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I don't suspect we will see Nick Leddy play a lot of time here in San Jose, but I do think he will be more that 7th D role, maybe get into 20 to 30 games this season, depending on injuries. That's where I'm putting Nick Leddy. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. But looking at last year, he got into 31 games with the St. Louis Blues. He's 34 now, going into his last year on his deal. Like I said, 5 points last year, and just kind of like an all-around defenseman here. He's good on the defensive end. He's good on the offensive end. We see him here holding a positive plus-minus 26 block shots in 31 games. That's almost a block per game, which you love to see that out of a guy like this. So I'm fine with this. I don't think it's a huge addition or anything, but it's definitely a safety blanket to have if you're the San Jose Sharks, where if something happens to a defenseman and they end up going down and getting injured, then you have a guy like Nick Leddy, who is NHL quality, who can come in and hold it down and hold his own in this league. So I do like this pickup. I mean, looking at his JFresh chart here, we see his EV defense take a huge bump from last season, seeing it going from 0% all the way up to 50%. So we're seeing him develop more into his offensive game, as earlier in his career, he was more that offensive guy that kind of fell off last season. So we're seeing him transition more into a two-way type of guy here, where, his EV offense is at 37%, his EV defense is at 29%, with a projected WAR of 51. So I think that it's good numbers. I think it's, maybe not the best numbers you want for a $4 million contract, but I do think that it is the numbers you're going to get out of a guy like Nick Leddy, who's 33, going into the end of his career, and, you only had to deal with this contract for 1 year. If you can ship him out at the deadline, you can do that if he wants to. Maybe he has a good season. Maybe he plays more games than what I'm expecting and what a lot of you guys are expecting. And maybe he's a guy we see traded for some draft capital at the deadline. But I do like these moves by Mike Grier. I must say, I do think that they've done a lot of great work here this offseason. And just more on Nick Leddy here, seeing his defense is at 44, offense at 32 from Rono Hockey chart here. So, you see what you're getting with this guy. He's, maybe a average or maybe below NHL average defenseman. So perfect 7 D-man here, in my opinion. And I do like these acquisitions. I do think that Mike Grier and the San Jose Sharks have really done well with a lot of money they had. They could have went out and offered a lot of guys. Like, we see Nick Ehlers was still available, but now he's in Carolina. But they had a lot of money to toss around, and for them to kind of reserve that for the guys that are going to need it, like Celebrini and, Eklund just signed his extension, but Celebrini and Will Smith, these guys are going to need big contracts in, what is it, a year or maybe 2 years' time, so that they can, lock those guys up for 8 years, and they'll be the future of this team, obviously. So they're reserving that money for now and just freeing that up for, the big deals that they are going to have to toss out. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the signings down below. I do think it is way better than we thought. I think going into this season with the defense we had wasn't very good, but now you're adding a very solid two-way guy in Dmitry Orlov that I think is going to make a lot of noise here in San Jose, and I think there's going to be a lot of teams calling for him come deadline time. And a guy like Nick Leddy, like I said, safety blanket type of guy, I do appreciate that, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below. But before we wrap it up here, I did want to highlight one of your guys' comments from the last video, so make sure to comment down below because you might be featured in a video. Thought this was a great question from John here. He said, can you say more about what you believe to be like a likely timetable for the Sharks to really compete? And he asked, I don't know why they're just signing these 1-2 year contracts. Are they to mentor then move on, to be used in trades? I'm not saying it's a poor strategy. He's just looking for help to understand, and that's why I'm here, John. I love seeing your guys' comments down below, love reading your guys, but I thought this was a great topic for debate here. I do think, personally, I think the Sharks compete this year. It depends on, how good the development goes, but I definitely would put a 2-year window on that. So by signing a lot of these guys to 1-2 year deals, that frees it all up. So in 2 years' time, when the Sharks are competing, they don't have to worry about all these contracts. They can just go out, spend the money to build the team around all the young guys and build a Stanley Cup team. It just gives them a lot more leeway than it would be if they're signing Orlov to a cheaper 5-year deal or something like that. You know what I mean? That's what they're doing here. It's not to say, hey, we want you for our bad years and then move on. It's just kind of filling the void for now until the team develops, to then Mike Grier and the San Jose Sharks know what they need to be a Stanley Cup contending team. So I appreciate the question there. I definitely do think it was a very interesting one, but that's the reason I think they're only signing these guys a 2-year deal. And I know a lot of you guys had questions about the Eklund deal, and I just think that they want all these guys to be locked up around the same time, and I think that's why he maybe signed a shorter term deal, but I do suspect him to be a Shark for a long time too. So I appreciate you guys tuning into the video, showing all your support down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I've been your host, KC. Keep your stick on the ice.